Hello, class. My name is Eric Green, and I'm going to be giving you a presentation on avoidant personality disorder. Um, and a very good subject for this matter is my man over here in the corner, Charlie Brown. I like to call him Chuck. Okay, what is avoidant personality disorder? To divide avoidant personality disorder, it's important to first understand what it is not. Avoidant personality disorder is not the typical shyness or social awkwardness we feel at times. Everyone lacks confidence or feels inadequate in some isolated situations. Um, those with avoidant personality disorder, though, constantly deal with these feelings in extreme and have likely done so since early childhood or early adolescence. Their intense fear of rejection has no obvious basis and stems from most possibly distorted thought patterns. Avoidant personality disorder is a severe mental health condition that permeates every aspect of the person's life. People suffering from it cannot stop dwelling on their own perceived shortcomings. They rarely form relationships, and when they do, they only interact with people they strongly believe they feel will not reject them. Because rejection and embarrassment are so intensely painful for these people. With avoidant personality disorder or APD or AVPD. Um, it's so intensely painful that a lot of them just choose to be lonely rather than take any kind of risk that will put them in a position that way will be encounter other people that could probably put them down. Um, the f- the avoidant personality disorder features has several different features. They have extreme negative emotion, which manifests itself as intense anxiety, fear of rejection, and embarrassment. They also have detachment as one, where they withdraw from society. They avoid intimacy, and they have a diminished ability for pleasure, almost a childlike ability, almost childlike. Um, it permeates every situation, and in those situations, significant distress and impairments involved. This includes in social events and social settings, work, and other daily life activities. Like in the community or doing things outside of their home. And it's very early onset. Um, it appears no later than early adulthood, like 20s, like early 20s. Um, the cluster that avoidant personality disorder sits in is cluster C, which is sometimes called the anxious personality disorder cluster because of the typical patterns of anxiety and being fearful. Excuse me. Moving on to some of the diagnostic features of the disorder. The DSM-5 says to be diagnosed with APD, you have to have uh, pers- you have to have a pattern of social inhibition, feelings of inadequacy, and hypersensitivity to negative evaluation, beginning at early adulthood and present in a variety of contexts as indicated by 4 or more of the following criteria. Avoids occupational activities that involve significant interpersonal contact because of the fears of criticism, disapproval, and rejection. Is unwilling to get involved with people unless certain that they will be liked. Shows restraint in intimate relationships because of fear of being shamed or ridiculed. Is preoccupied with being criticized and rejected in social situations. Is inhibited in new interpersonal situations because of feelings of inadequacy. Views self as socially inept, personally unappealing, and inferior to others. Also, the last one is usually reluctant to take personal risks or to engage in any new activities because they may prove embarrassing for them. Um, some famous people with this disorder. This is something that I found quite interesting. So I threw it in here. Is that uh, these are big stars and very famous people that you wouldn't even think had this disorder or had any kind of disorder, really, to be perfectly honest with you. And they are Michael Jackson, Donny Osmond, and Kim Basinger. And um, so even stars and people that are in positions where they have to be out in the public and in social events and in social arenas, they still do suffer from APD. Kim Basinger singer actually said that she overcame a lot of the stigma and the things that she was fearful of when going to public by going through therapy. And so therapy does work. And also, Donny Osmond said that if he was given a choice to go on stage or die, um, he would have chosen death at one of his events that he was having. So that's pretty profound. That's pretty profound. And he also narrated a documentary about severe social anxiety called Afraid of People. So you can check that out if you want to. In the case of Michael Jackson, he was never diagnosed with avoidant personality disorder, but we can just look at his life and see that he may have been one of those people. He was very shy, very inept in public, very childlike. Um, Whenever he did go out in public, he tried to disguise himself to avoid being at amusement parks. He built his own amusement park in his backyard. His house had playhouses in it and different areas in the house where he could just go and do activities that didn't involve other people. So again, that just goes to show that even famous people fight with this, struggle with this disease or this disorder, and it can be overcome. So if we look at the presentation of avoidant personality disorder, the people usually are oversensitive and easily hurt by criticism or disapproval. So you see how that could affect them with having friends or going to work. They usually have no close friends and are reluctant to become involved with other people. Again, that goes back to them. They have to feel like I'm only going to get involved with this person if they're going to like me. And if they have any idea, any kind of thought that people are not going to like them, they're not gonna seek out that relationship. They experience extreme anxiety and fear in social settings and in relationships, leading them to avoid activities or jobs that involve being with others. So you probably won't even notice these people because they're not out there. And if they're out there, you won't notice them because you wouldn't think that was them. So it's kind of I can see how it's kind of not a lot of literature on it and not a lot of research been done on it because the people that have it usually don't come out. So they have a tendency to work from home, do telemarketing where they just have to call people and jobs such as that nature. They tend to be, even when they come out in public, they tend to be shy and kind of awkward and self-conscious in social settings due to their fear and they do something wrong or being embarrassed by somebody or somebody will notice them. They tend to exaggerate potential problems. Again, I think that's more of a point so they could give themselves a reason to stay inside and not have to go outside and participate with anybody. And they seldom try anything new or take chances. And they have poor self-image, seeing themselves as, again, inadequate and unappealing. They don't think they have any redeeming qualities. This is the person that you ask. You be like, "What do you do best?" And they'd be like, "I don't do anything," you know, or they just shake their head, and not answer the question. So it is really kind of debilitating disorder. If we look at the prevalence of it, we look at about 1.6% of the population has avoidant personality disorder. But the biggest thing is that, which is I find kind of odd, is that of the personality disorders that are diagnosed in therapeutic sessions, it makes up the highest ratio. It's diagnosed 14.7% of the time. And that kind of cuts against the grain of of what I think of the disorder personally. Now, and if we look at it, if it's found among boys or girls, it's basically a 1-to-1 ratio. So no one gender is more prone to have it than any other. The cause of avoidant personality disorder is not clearly defined, and it may be influenced by a combination of social, genetic, and biological factors. Avoidant personality traits typically appear in childhood with signs of excessive shyness and fear when the child confronts new people and situations. These characteristics are also developmentally appropriate. These characteristics are also developmentally appropriate emotions for children, however, and they not necessarily mean that they're a pattern of avoidant personality disorder that will continue into adulthood. When shyness is unfounded, when shyness, unfounded fear of rejection, and hypersensitivity to criticism, and a pattern of social avoidance persists and intensifies through adolescence and young adulthood, the diagnosis for this disorder are often indicated. Many people with this disorder have painful early experiences of chronic parental criticism and rejection, and that in essence takes them to having creating this defensive shell of self-protecting against the parental's criticism, ridicule, and also rejection by peers further reinforces this person's pattern of social withdrawal. So it also contributes to the fear of social contact. When we look at the prognosis, we look at the onset, some of the things that not very many long-term studies have been done with children. Social anxiety often precedes the onset of depression and alcohol abuse. If we examine adults that with APD, indicated that childhood lack of involvement with peers and failure to engage in structured activities, they may persist into adulthood and far into the person's life. Child age 2 years old prescribed as being fearful and withdrawn in new situations were found to have higher levels of social anxiety as adolescents. If we look at the course of development, the avoidant behavior starts in infancy with shyness and isolation and fear again of strangers, again in new situations. Unfortunately, for some though, this behavior carries on into adulthood and over the course of their life. If we look at forms of treatment of this disorder, we find that cognitive behavior therapy, social skills training has worked really well in conjunction with exposure techniques. Behavior therapy may include social skills training, role playing, journaling, group exposure, or relaxation. Cancer 2010. But there's no real compelling literature recommending any type of medication for the primary treatment of this disorder. Also, I like to throw in there and add that, group therapy helps a lot because you put the person in an empathetic environment in a group setting where each member can help them overcome the social anxieties. But you do want to incorporate some social skills training also inside that group therapy to enhance the social awareness and the feedback. Um, that concludes my presentation on avoidant personality disorder. Um, I have 2 reference pages listed, and if you want to look at those, you can. Thank you.